Good morning. We are going to call the Port Authority meeting for September 16, 2021 to order. And we will start with our invocation by Reverend Alan Poe, and then the pledge.
Chest. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, for having us here, all guests. It's good to be here. Shameless plug. So we have a golf tournament on October 9th, and I hope some of you can be there. Thank you for those who are supporting us on that one. This afternoon, we're probably doing 34 vaccines on board ships, and 3 different ships. So we're at past 450, I think. But just wanted to share a word of wisdom, and then I'll pray, and it won't be very long. So this is the Apostle Paul from Philippians chapter 4, and he says, finally. When a preacher says finally at the end of the sermon, it's still going to be 5-10 minutes, just so you know, but not me. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Let that be kind of surrounding us as we go through this meeting today. We thank you, gracious God, for calling people together to serve through the avenues of government. We thank you that you do give them wisdom, that you do give them insight and wise counsel through other folks. May that be so true today as this meeting occurs. Thank you for those who are presenting, that we know more about what's going on here. Thank you for those men and women who labor here, both from office staff to port workers and seafarers. Bless them, keep them safe, and through this time of this meeting, help us to do our best to support them and each other. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, did you get a text message from Kevin?
No, ma'am.
He went to our chambers. So he's on the way here. Just thought I'd let you know.
I would definitely say that.
Just take funding from Fortune District 3.
Okay, we'll pass it to Mr. Carlos.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Sorry to have to come to another meeting of your busy week. We have one this afternoon, so I think today's agenda will be relatively brief. And so we'd like to start right away. We're going to skip, based on current situation with the introductions, the self-introductions, because the microphone would have to be passed around, and there wouldn't be enough time not to take 20 or 30 minutes to clean, the microphone before we hand it off to the next person. So, of course, the public is, welcome to talk about any issue and come up to the podium, and that's still in effect. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if you could call for public comment.
Yes, do we have any public comment? Do we have any public comment going twice? We have no one?
Okay. Anybody on the phone?
Oh, he watches too much of our meeting.
No, we don't have any men on the phone, Mr. Chairman, I can tell you that. Okay.
I think that's a private joke.
All of our, they come here. They come. They show up. No, we don't have anybody on the phone. Anyway. Mike's not out?
Can you start over?
Okay.
His mic went out.
Well, I thought I broke that in because can't forget the phone. There, thank you very much. Well, moving on, it's not, often that we have, let's say, long and trusted employees voluntarily retire or leave the port. The port has very little turnover, as you all know. The employees of the port, the team at the port, the ones we work with every day, stay on for a long time. But we have one at some point that want to retire. And today, and I'll call on David St. Pierre to come up too, and Tim Boothby, who's one of our longtime security employees, is retiring. So I'm going to have David, introduce him and then present him with a plaque.
Well, good morning. It's on? Yeah. Good morning. Of course, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce Tim Boothby, a former resident of the state of New Jersey, made the smart decision and came down to beautiful Manatee County.
Amen.
When he arrived here, of course, he worked for 7-Eleven for 10 years and then came to work for us. He's been with us a little bit under 10 years. He has achieved a lot for us. He's actually qualified to do every position we have in the security department, up into including being one of our TWIC trusted agents. So losing somebody with Tim's experience for us is one of those challenges that we face every now and then. But he has been an essential member of the team, and I'm more than happy to recognize him today. As is, of course, the tradition, okay, Tim, we would like to present you with this bell in commemoration of your 9.5 years of service.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Tim.
it.
Come on.
Thank you.
And Tim, if you'd like to say a few words.
I'm not one for speeches, but I wrote a little something. Okay, I'd like to say thank you.
Go ahead.
To you, everyone, for letting me read that. I know it was gonna happen.
That's okay.
I hate when I gotta read somebody's speech for him.
I knew I was gonna get choked up.
I'd like to say thank you to everyone for letting me be the part of Port Manatee. I see a lot of changes over the last 9.5 years, and more to come as the port keeps getting bigger.
Tim.
I've learned a lot about shipping.
I've learned a lot about shipping, the shipping industry. I've made many friends over the years, and a lot are just like my family. I wish Port Manatee all the best in the growth of the port, and once again, thank you, everyone.
Yay.
We're going to keep this as the stock.
And thank you again,
Sure we
everybody.
can.
I'm gonna miss a lot of people here.
There's your plaque. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you so much.
Well,
Okay.
you know, we leave people speechless.
Okay,
at this
sir,
board, so.
before you leave, sir.
Tim.
Tim.
Come back.
Before you leave, we have a couple of commissioners that would like to speak. Commissioner Ball.
Tim, I just wish you the very, very best. I hope you enjoy every single day of your retirement, but I'm sure that you will be missed here. And I just want to say that, you know, it's been an honor to have you serving with security in the finest security department in the United States at our ports. So I just wanted to say thank you
Okay, thank
for
you.
your service
I
with
must
us.
say, this is the best job I've ever had.
And you were right about it.
Best
It is
job I've ever
family.
had.
Yeah.
And I
Commission-
always loved working with shipping.
Commissioner Servio.
Yes, Tim, it's always bittersweet to see someone that is so trusted and excellent retire, but it's such a happy moment as well. So thank you for your service. I hope you enjoy your retirement, and just know that you made a difference as in your 9 years here at Port Manatee. Thank you.
Good morning. Listen, since you guys will not be becoming, I'm going to bring you up next.
Commissioner
Say
Satcher.
a few words.
Thank you, sir,
Yeah, in a second.
Mr. Chair.
So I don't want you to wait till the
So
end.
the Bible says that a faithful man will abound with blessings. And so I'm just excited about good things for you, and we really appreciate your service. And then if you would like, and with the chair's permission, we were going to get a picture.
Sure.
Okay.
Are there any?
Right. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. We want to take a picture with him?
You want to just do it?
Right. It doesn't matter what I'm taking.
I said we just come right here and have him come stand front. And then we could do Carlos and whoever else.
Carlos, you want to take a picture with him?
Come on, Tim, it's your day. We're taking a picture with you.
Where do you want us to go?
Probably in front.
Or in between the tall guy and the other.
Whichever you want to do.
Yeah, in front. We
Do
usually
you
do in
want
front.
All right.
in front or? Okay.
No.
People you'll recognize in the picture too.
Well, we need Dave.
Yeah.
Come on, Dave. Wouldn't be right not to have you in it.
Okay, ready, guys? 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Make sure you get a picture.
Then you can throw darts at her or whatever.
Yeah. The dog will go crazy.
I know.
And again, Tim, thank you for everything and your commitment to the port. We'll go right now into presentations.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to note one of our only regular agenda item, the Del Monte lease, is being delayed a little bit until the next meeting. They're having some issues changing software at Del Monte, and they're going to a new electronic system, and they want to process the new lease under the new system, although they had it ready to go with regular signatures. So anyway, we will be bringing back the agenda item to you for the October meeting. We are going to make one change, though, with your concurrence, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, is that Customs the top brass for Customs is here. And so we have Dr. Miam and Christian Colmenares. As you know, we have federal agencies, but their presentation is encrypted. We can't unencrypt it, obviously. And so rather than have them wait, they'll kind of come back to you in October, rather than have them wait and listen to everything else to tell you it's encrypted, we're going to have them come up, say a few words, and then come back in October with the unencrypted version of the presentation. So if you'd like to come up, please say a few words, and maybe just maybe 5 minutes on what you all do here at the port, right? And then next month, yes it is. You're live. There you go.
Good morning. I'm Linda Meehan. I am the chief here at Port Manatee. I have oversight of Port Manatee and agriculture operations.
Yeah, like Frank Sinatra.
Okay, so just like karaoke time. Yeah. So we apologize between both of our computer systems. There's so much security we can't get through. So we had a great video for you that we think you'll enjoy. And 2 presentations, kind of short and sweet, but tells you more about our agency, what we do here.
Okay.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Chris Colmenares, Port Director here in Port Manatee for Customs Border Protection. Just like Chief Meehan said, we had some unfortunate technical issues with our presentation. But a quick brief on our agency. We're the largest law enforcement agency in the nation. While we are trying to eradicate any threats to our nation, terrorist threats, we are also trying to facilitate lawful trade and travel. That's basically our purpose here in the port. That's our job. It's not an easy one, but we are tasked with it, and it's a challenging one, and with the help of all you guys, it's making it happen. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. And you'll be back.
Yes, we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we
So-
have no commissioners have any comments. We'll go to the next one.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Well, this is just an example of the many federal and state agencies. We also have our state agency, our partners from MFDOT are here today too, that interact with the port in order to make commerce occur. Homeland Security, with many aspects of foreign and domestic, and of course FDOT with their responsibilities for the oversight and efficient transportation of cargoes and passengers and all the other modes of transport within the state. Now, our next presenter is now the newly elected president of the Florida Ports Council.
Yay.
So Mike Rubin has been at the Florida Ports Council for probably better part of 20-some years, right? And so the board of the Florida Ports Council, which is comprised of all the ports, came together last month and officially offered Mike the position of CEO and president. And Mike will be telling you more about what he does and what the Florida Ports Council does in its relationship with FDOT,
state and federal agencies with regard to efficient port operations. Mike?
I think I got a presentation up here as well. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity this morning. I appreciate the invite from one of my port directors. As Carlos mentioned, my name is Mike Rubin. I am now the President and CEO. I have the honor of working for not only for Carlos, but for 13 other port directors around the state. Quite proud of working for them. Much like you all do a great job here, I really think that our seaports are the backbone to economic development in the state of Florida. And I'm thrilled to be able to be the President and CEO. I've been doing economic development issues for years. I know some of you we've interacted for before when you get the joy of coming up to Tallahassee. We'll just leave that there. But I was House staff for quite some time in the Commerce Committee, and then joined the Florida Ports Council as really the government affairs individual about 20 plus years ago. I've been working in both the legislature and Congress as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to give you hopefully a short PowerPoint. I think I went the wrong way. A short PowerPoint on this, but this slide's actually my favorite slide, maritime history. I really, I love history. I think, you look at the foundation of the United States. I don't think Florida gets enough credit for the role that this state played. Maybe not have been a state at the time, but the role that at least Florida played in the foundation, not only the United States, but also the foundation of Florida by the maritime industry. If you look at the first international commerce issue anywhere in the United States occurred in the Jacksonville area. That was between the French and the English. They were trading weapons for vessels, but it just shows you how important Florida was. Still the first city, as you all know, in the St. Augustine area. But our ports have played an interesting role in all of it. I mean, if you look over areas in the Pensacola area, certainly Revolutionary War issues with respect to the Spanish helping out the creation. So it is a great maritime history, and Florida has always been at the center of it, and our seaports have been the foundation of it. In fact, the reason why the capital, and many of you know this, is in Tallahassee is because it's midway point between Pensacola really and the St. Augustine, and instead of these people getting sick and having the meetings in their own area, they built something in Tallahassee. But those were two seaport areas. If you look at where the U.S. Constitution was signed in Florida, it was signed at Port St. Joe, which is still a port, doing a little bit of work. They're actually doing a lot better than they are these days, but our ports remain, in my opinion, the foundation of all activity and economic development in the state of Florida. And I haven't been here it's pre-COVID, and I'm just amazed at the amount of economic activity going on at your port by the work that you all do, and certainly the work that Carlos and his crew do as well. Moving on to just our seaports, we actually have 15 statutory seaports. We've got the longest continental United States sea area there, all the way from Port of Pensacola all the way up to Port of Fernandina. All of them, in some form or another, are doing cargo, cruise is back, and other issues. So you can really reach anywhere in the United States and anywhere in the globe and transport just about anything through one of our Florida seaports. And all of our seaports are here in Florida, our local government seaports. I really have this slide because this is something I use for new elected officials in Tallahassee. They get confused because Georgia has a very big seaport, and it's a state seaport entity. But we're similar to other large states that have a significant coastal area like California, Louisiana, and Texas. We don't have the most seaports. I know you may or may not have heard that. We do not. You look at the number there, that's by Louisiana. A lot of those are river ports, but and they certainly have a lot of fuel ports. But all of our ports are local government seaports, and frankly, the effort that you all put in with your communities and with this port is better than trying to have somebody up in Tallahassee run your seaport here in Manatee County. Nobody knows better than you what kind of economic activity needs to occur at your port. You do your analysis, Your professional staff does their analysis, and look at the growth you have out there. Speaking of the support, I mean, even with the pandemic, our seaports support over 900,000 direct and indirect jobs, still do. The income was down a little bit in 2020, which is because everybody was closed, but 117 billion in economic activity, 4.3 billion in state and local tax revenue, quite an impact. Cargo, these numbers again are down a little bit, but still a significant number of TEUs and tonnage. And I put this on there just to, there was actually a little bit of numbers in 2020 before March shut it down, but it's been it was shut down for 17 months. Just crazy. You don't know why the cruise industry was picked out as being unable to operate, but they're back up and running now. But if you look at it, we were almost at 20 million passengers. We would have exceeded 20 million passengers last year if they had been allowed to operate and COVID hadn't occurred. And that's almost 8 billion in income for a lot of people. So significant impact. Obviously not as large of an impact because you all don't deal with cruise lines, but a port like Port Canaveral that has 80% of its revenue coming from cruise operations, significant hit. Yeah. And I will tell you the governor and Florida legislature and certainly DOT have helped out those ports immensely with a little bit of the funds that came out of the American Rescue Plan Act. $250 million was a huge benefit to those ports trying to find revenue. Florida Ports Council. We've been around, I want to say, 30 plus years. Carlos has not been around that long with us, but neither have I. But the entity was actually created before a lot of other issues. I will tell you, seaports were much like any other mode back in the day. Were not really a part of all the discussions and the operations. So the group of port directors got together and decided, okay, we need to make sure that our efforts are known to both state and local stakeholders. So really our job and my job, and certainly you'll see Emily Fisher, who's come up with me, a recent hire, is to help educate not only the Florida legislature, but congressional members. And to the extent I have this opportunity to talk to you wonderful people as well. I know Carlos does a great job, but part of my role here is not only to talk about Port Manatee, but let you know that your fellow ports all work together and certainly try to do what we have: advocacy, education, a little bit of planning. There's a couple of state statutory programs we run. I'll talk a little bit about them in a second. But the Florida legislature and certainly DOT have been involved in helping us annually put some money away so you all can plan as port administrators on at least a little bit of minimum projects that you'll have moving forward. So I work for 14 port directors. They meet at least once or twice a year and talk about it. I'm happy to say that we've wrangled Carlos into being our vice chairman. He's going to be my chairman in a bit. I'm looking forward to his leadership on there. I know he's done a great job here, and I'm looking forward to him helping me make sure we educate both Congress and the Florida legislature. The FSTIP program. This program was created about 20 years ago. It's a statutory partnership between really the Florida legislature, the governor's office, and Florida seaports. It's basically a 50-50 funding program. 25 million minimum every year allocated for it. The group just met recently in Panama City to allocate. We allocated about $40 million because we had some bond funds. I'll talk about that in a second. But this group has the Secretary of DOT and the Secretary of the the Department of Economic Opportunity sit on it. They talk about mostly funding issues. Ports will submit projects. I know there were 2 projects submitted by Port Manatee, the cranes that you have that you're looking at, as well as a hopper. And so we're hopeful to fund as many of those projects as we can with that little bit of money. It's a little bit of money, and we stretch it pretty thin. It's matched with our partners. Dan back there does a good job in helping us look at eligible projects and allocate funds, and DOT will help with trying to fill some holes with the amount of money they have as well. But it's a good public entity. Has public hearings, and at least meets once or twice a year. The Florida Ports Financing Commission. I have to point out Denise on this one. She has served as a chair over the last, feels like, what, 5 years? Feels like 10 years.
Feels like 10? Good girl.
She has been fantastic. It's usually not a role that does much. We issue bonds 30-year bonds almost 20 years ago, but they were up for refinancing. And she didn't know we were going to do this to her, but we kind of mentioned to her, you know what, we can generate about $20 million by refinancing those bonds. And she graciously served as our chair and did a great job of helping shepherd us through a process that required RFPs and a selection of all sorts of bond councils, and we allocated that money as well. And I really thank Denise for her service as it. She's thankfully rotating off now, so she doesn't have to put up with me and others on it, but she did a fantastic job. But there's statutory funding allocated, really $25 million, which is the key number on it. Again, the bonds were issued 30 years ago. When those rotate off, there'll be another $25 million that potentially could be, again, financed for bonds in there. Just briefly on the COVID impacts, you all actually weathered it rather well. Good job, Carlos, on it. But certainly, again, it was probably more cruise related. A little bit of cargo. Cargo actually was down for a bit because they were closed, but the amazing thing is that cargo's up now everywhere. All the cargo ports are seeing increased numbers, just like you all are here as well. And we're hopeful that we'll see some cruise passengers. The cruise numbers aren't going to come back till 2022, but hopefully they'll come back in some form. It'll be a while before we get close to 20 million again. Future investments. Our ports all work together. We give a seaport plan to the legislature. We give it to the federal government as well, listing what our combined projects might be that we want to have. And that's about a $3.3 billion for all the seaports. Some interesting numbers in there. Most of it's berth rehab and repairs because, this, as you all well know, stuff's sitting in the water. You've got, after 15 years plus, you've had a lot of investments. And so it's really a lot of rehab that occurs on it. But there's also cruise facilities, cargo terminals. The channel deepenings numbers actually gone down a little bit. Thanks to DOT and others, we've managed to invest a significant amount of both state and federal dollars in dredging projects at like Miami. Jacksonville's finishing their big dredging project. Port Everglades is in the middle of theirs. So a lot of ports with dredging projects. And I know you all do a number of little dredging projects here. I shouldn't say little, significant dredging projects here. I know Dave does a good job with the Army Corps on working with that. But so $3.3 billion for all of our ports. Obviously, $25 million, a little bit of that goes a little ways towards it. But clearly a lot of investment by the local boards. Hopefully there's some more investment by the federal government. We'll continue to ask them for it. They seem to be printing money up there at the moment.
I know.
So we need to stay in front of them. And again, DOT and the legislature have been pretty good at allocation as well. And finally, well, not finally, but some potential issues we're looking at. Obviously, the appropriation bill this year will start. It's always our concern. We were worried that there might be some lost revenue that the legislature might have to start looking at trust funds to take money from, and always the state transportation trust funds, one of the first things identified to borrow money out of. But it doesn't look that way right now. We're hopeful the revenues will be up and that won't impact the amount of money that ports are looking for, including any additional funding that you all may be looking for. It's early in that process, though, as you all well know, and we'll continue to look at it. Federal infrastructure. I don't have my magic 8 ball on me this morning. I can't tell you where the $3.5 trillion bill is anywhere, but yeah. I think we're hopeful that something will pass out of there. They have actually allocated more money for maritime projects than they have in a long time, and that's really because of a lot of leadership from our Florida delegation up there. I know that Congressman Diaz-Balart's been on the THUD appropriations with transportation and has been a leader there. To the extent they can have bipartisan discussions, I know he'll have an input on it. But so we'll continue to go up there. We have some Seaport members that are Democrats and Seaport members that are Republicans, and they do work together on transportation issues sometimes. And we're hopeful that they'll put some money away for transportation and Seaport issues up there as well. Bills that may be out there, you all. I know the senator from this area was stuck with a bill that I think my good friends at the Harbor Pilots gave him that he probably didn't know what was in it when he first filed it. And he probably would be frank in telling me that. He worked with us. He was wonderful to work with us. I think we resolved a lot of issues. But anybody that's dealt with Conch Nation down there, it's not resolved. I don't know, they've hired an attorney firm, a law firm down there, so I couldn't tell you what's going down in Key West and what will happen with that. I'm hopeful that any legislation will not be a broad legislation on all seaports, because it was unnecessary. It's a local issue, and it needs to remain a local issue. But we're looking at issues out there. Obviously, we've heard a lot about purchase of products from Chinese companies. That issue may come up. We're a little concerned about that because although you all have purchased German cranes, a lot of my seaports, the only place they can purchase some of the cranes, including Port Everglades, which are low impact kind of cranes, the only place they're made is in China, and there's a lot of Chinese steel and all this stuff. It's just, a prohibition is a difficult thing to do. We get it. I think we understand there's an issue. There's always been an issue for several years now with the trade imbalance, but a strict prohibition is a difficult thing for my ports to deal with when it's the only place it's manufactured. So we're looking with that, as well as the Made in USA and all the rest of the stuff that I know you all are complying with on a whole host of things, and we're not sure where that'll go from there. And that's really it. I'm happy to answer questions. Again, I want to thank Carlos for the invite, and Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for giving me the time this morning.
All right, we do have a few comments. Commissioner Whitmore?
Mike, thank you very much. It's the first time I can recall. I've been in office since 2006, maybe one other time that someone came to speak to us. So I really appreciate it because, you're speaking as one unified voice representing all the ports to the state and the feds, right, exactly. And serving 3 years on as a port chair, you were it, and Carlos had just come, and we were trying to deal with Pineapple Gate and other things that even you know about it.
Yes, I remember it well.
Yeah. So, ports are the economic driver for Florida, but for the world. I mean, is a bird knocking on the window? But anyway, so in a $3.4 billion investment, I mean, I can honestly say none of our governors, no matter who they are, have really, except maybe during the recession, have not tried to help the ports in the state of Florida. But I do think it's always the loudest voice, and like down south, and that's why I think the Ports Council, it makes a difference because you're speaking as one voice, and I think that helps, and our relationships with our representative helps. So I just wanted to thank you for that, and I know Buchanan was here recently, and he's interested, as always has been, about cruise work coming here possibly. I drove around the port. I haven't done it in about a year, but I used to do it every time I came here. And I just cannot believe, I've never seen containers stacked 4, 5, 6 high, ever. And I've been coming here since 2006. I cannot believe what's going on now. So things like that with the cruise world, we'd have to really start planning now versus later, even if it doesn't happen until later. So I really appreciate it, and it was really nice meeting you, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Well, thank you. Absolutely.
Commissioner Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, it's always good to see you. We can't survive without the Port Council. You guys are our backbone, and we have a great working relationship, and we just appreciate everything that you've managed to do, and the, just the partnership with the Ports Council. I remember several years ago, I was in a meeting with Carlos, and I think I know Dave Sanford was there. We were up in D.C., and gosh, I can't remember. Do you remember the guy? I don't remember. Isn't that terrible? At any rate.
D.C. can be forgettable at any time.
Well, it was an interesting conversation, and we were all called up there to have a conversation about Port Manatee and how we were going to grow and what we were going to do. And I know that you guys were part of that. And, it's just nice to know that you guys are there and that you are supporting all of our 15 ports, and you do make such a big difference. So thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
It's a rare treat. Thank you.
Yeah, and the same thing here. It's always exciting when you come in and have this level of education that you presented to us. A lot of that information I just didn't know. I'll be very honest with you. So we're very appreciative of that. More importantly, your continued support and the partnership that you have with Carlos, and we do want to commend him on and his work, as well as congratulate him as far as being your VP of the council, and I think that's very important to acknowledge. And again, that's extended to him and his team and all the work that they do. So where we are has no clue based on where we're going, but the great things that come with the port, and we'll talk about cruise here a little bit shortly. But thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Appreciate
by
it.
the way, one last thing. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention it. Glad that we had Senator Boyd to carry that bill down south. That was perfect. I loved it.
I was glad I was glad to have somebody to talk with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Carlos.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, I would look for your consideration to approve item 3, the consent agenda. Sorry, number 4, the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as requested.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Passed unanimously.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. Now we're going to go into some comments. You want to? Going to have the meeting that
Right.
the chair had, right?
Right.
First.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're going to bring up the picture,
Right.
right? As you've heard, there was a meeting with senior executives from Carnival Cruise Corp. Sorry, Carnival is the world's largest cruise line. They have about 15, 16 different brands that you know, but are not identified with Carnival directly, such as Princess Cruises, Holland America, Cunard, and many others. And essentially, in the cruise world, Carnival is double the size of Royal Caribbean. Royal Caribbean is double the size of the Norwegian Cruise Line. Norwegian Cruise Line and Royal Caribbean and Carnival represent 80% of the global capacity. One cruise ship today, and there are many on order, one cruise ship today is over $1 billion. Really? Just to get it out of the yard, $1 billion. Try to crew the ship, then you need 2,500 crew members. You're going to have to sell that cabin to 6,500 passengers a week on the big ships. Okay, so multiply that times all the Florida ports. As Mike was saying, you know, Florida is the cruise capital, you know, of the world. But from here, many of them, of course, because in the summer it's a little bit too hot to cruise and there are few, you know, wind events, they do move to the European market, mostly in Northern Europe and the Mediterranean. And so Jura Israel, who was a senior representative, and Congressman Buchanan were here to kind of discuss what the port could do and how we could move forward. As you heard, Congressman Buchanan has always had an interest in us expanding that and getting into that business sector, which I think is an opportunity, and we are planning to discuss this with you and make sure you're okay with it, and then if that's the case, pursue it. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to further discuss what happened.
Right, and before I open it up to the other commissioners, we really want to plant the seed of cruise terminal here and look for an opportunity of growth here at Port Authority. We had a very, very positive meeting, and at that meeting, obviously Congressman Buchanan was there, and we had the Federal Commissioner for Maritime and the VP from Carnival Cruise, and I think the thing that I took away from it, from the congressman, is we're looking for a win-win opportunity, and we would like this board to kind of have that mindset so we can bring a cruise terminal here. And there's a couple things that when you talk about a cruise terminal, as far as multi-use came up a couple of times, and when they were talking about multi-use, obviously for storage, ferry, and cruise. The reality of it, each step is going to take a little bit more work, a little bit more planning, but it will extend a little bit more opportunity to the port. If we think about where we are now from the port, as far as 27,000 jobs, direct and indirect. I was talking this morning to Carlos, and that number may, if we get where we want to go, bringing the cruise terminal here, may increase, another 5,000 to 10,000 as far as economic impact with direct and indirect. And then we have the CEO and president of the Port Council, and you're bringing up cruise, and Commissioner Whitmore thought it was like, hey, we're right where we need to be as far as the mindset. This is a perfect timing with the growth here at the Port Authority for us to move in the direction of a cruise terminal. So I was very excited and very, very encouraged about the opportunity for a number of reasons. If we look at growth here in Manatee County, I mean, census tells us that from the last report, we've grown over 200,000 people. And we know North River there's a lot going on with the purchase of the 400 plus acres here recently. Economic development is going to be major here, North River and Manatee County. So the discussion of a cruise terminal, I think we're in a real right situation for us to take in and grow. So that brings excitement, but we have to make sure from the Port Authority, the board, our mindset, kind of shift. And one of the things that I was thinking about last night is like cruise terminal, cruise terminal,
Right.
cruise terminal. And we want to make sure we put that out there. So hopefully the Port Authority can support it. And we have the resources and the capability, but once the vision comes forward, we want to need the support from the authority. Do we have any comments?
I do.
Okay, we'll have Whitmore, Serbia, and then Satcher at this point.
Yeah, when I heard that Congressman Buchanan was here, I sent him a message, and he had written back, "I want to bring a cruise ship." So he's and I know he's been talking about this over the years. My thoughts are we need to start planning. If we get this as a policy of the board, to see if we could, where it would work. We also know, Carlos and I talked over it many times about the heights of the ships now. Can't get under the skyway. There's only a certain size that can go to Port of Tampa, and here too. And so we also have to look at all that and where we would put it, since we are getting so busy. And I know we were thinking of extending 12 and then we also, our long range plans is the other direction north. But what I really think what we need is for the new ones that are up here, Congressman Buchanan has been talking about this a long time. I think a letter of support of the idea to support from the Port Authority, which we've never done. And I think that would be some kind of action to say we are on board to look and study the feasibility of possibly doing that. And have the chairman sign it. So I don't know how the rest of the Port Authority feels about it, but this has been no secret for years. So I think that but we've never put it on a platform, and we've never put anything in writing.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and what a great opportunity. And I agree with what Commissioner Whitmore just said, that why not do a letter and support our U.S. Congressman as we look at the feasibility of this. We heard in the last presentation about the importance of diversification and why we are so successful here at Port Manatee, and this is just another great opportunity to do the same. I remember when we had a cruise ship here. That was before you were here, Carlos. But, there was so much excitement. I went out on the ship, everybody did, and I'm glad we're going to revisit that and bring it here. And I am the TDC chair, Tourist Development Council chair. And so when I think of the impact that it would have on tourist development, I get really, really excited. So let us know how we can support you. I hope that we get to do this rather quickly. Thank you.
Commissioner Satcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the idea, so I'm going to just go through a few questions. First of all, by developing this, by going forward with something like this, do we in any way jeopardize our already successful container business?
I think it's a good question. We don't want to sacrifice any revenue, and this would have to be complementary, and it would only work if it's complementary to what we have. And so I can tell you that we would not sacrifice any cargo that would then, be displaced to bring in a cruise terminal. That would not happen. Totally on top of what we have today. It's, as Commissioner Serbia said, it's a great income and economic impact generator when you consider that the market for the cruise business and even a ferry service also, which would also work well with a cruise terminal, it's like an 80% drive market. It's, Georgia, Alabama, et cetera, driving here, staying here the night before or 2 nights, getting a chance to see the area.
Right.
Okay, then say, you know what? I'd like to come back here. It's not bad, So that's what a lot of the ports count on, especially with the CVBs. And I sat on the CVB in Fort Lauderdale, and that's definitely an opportunity for free. They're coming here, and they don't want to miss the proverbial ship, and so they will stay a night or 2, pre and post. And then the CVB can put on a campaign to further entice them to come back. So you come back, get a 10% discount here. And of course, we're building another hotel, the Sheraton, right, by the port, who in their planning is already counting on cruise passengers. So, they wanted to make sure the numbers, and it's not unrealistic. And I thank you, though, for considering a letter being written in support of what Congressman Buchanan has done to literally bring, the senior brass from the world's largest cruise line, right here.
And so, given that, would it have to coincide with the expansion of the port, or will we be able to do it with what we have now while we're still building?
Okay, we have identified 2 spots to build it.
Great.
We would essentially reconfigure some of the footprint to be able to create the access, but the answer is we can do it today.
Great.
We just need the time to, though, design it, build it, and put it into operations. But it's not a pie-in-the-sky situation where, we have to fill in a lake to be able to put on this and to, no, it's there now.
So, and I had a couple of other questions, but I think that they're going to be getting too much into the weeds, but just how long it's going to take, how much money, and what split between local, federal, state, et cetera. But I think that at the end of that, no matter what the answers are, the bottom line is I believe that everyone's going to want to move forward with this. I would assume. And so I'm excited about it. I'd like to do the letter, but I'd like to go beyond that. So if you let us know what the next step is as far as who's going to take the lead and take point on it, I'd like to empower them with anything they need from us. So just let us know. I'm excited about it. It'd be great for this area.
And to answer one of your questions, I will be taking the lead. So
wonderful.
With a team, with a team, and we have the experience on the staff even, and myself included, that having worked at Everglades and having worked at many other ports, we know how it's made. We know how the sausage is made. We know how the cruise terminals develop. We have the trust. And we have, I think, the logic, because consider this. The east coast of Florida has 5 cruise ports. The west coast of Florida has 1. And I even pointed this out, God forbid, but it's Tampa Bay is a dead end. Okay, you go to Port of Tampa, you got to turn back. You can't keep on going, okay? Right, so as a result, it would, even in the best interest of the cruise lines, it would be wise for them to have an alternate terminal, because if something were, again, God forbid, to happen in the channel, the Tampa port would be totally blocked from having any ships, cruise and otherwise. Being closer to the main channel here and being closer, obviously to open waters, it just makes sense to have 2. You have 5 on the other coast, and they're all very successful, as Mike, Ruben pointed out. 5 million in Canaveral. About 4, as much 6 in Miami, and a cruise terminal today. Although, I think to answer some of Commissioner Satcher's questions, we will build a efficient, not a symbolic cruise terminal, and that's one of the things they pointed out. That Carnival said, "Don't build me a $250 million terminal like Miami did. It's inefficient." Go take a look at the terminals that he built, which essentially are a fraction of the price. And the passenger today once they get on the ship, they don't want to hang around the terminal. So we don't need to spend $250 million. And there's one in Miami being built for $425 million. Okay. Those are signature buildings. It's very nice, but it costs a lot to repay, that much money. And so our terminal will be significantly less efficient and would serve several uses, such as the cruise, cargo, and also the ferry, cargo, and the cruise business.
I was going to make a motion.
Oh, we still have people on the board, but if you're not finished, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and then I'll make a motion to have the chair and Carlos Piqueros put together a letter for us to endorse moving forward decisively on getting us a port or a cruise terminal.
Plan, yeah. I second it. Mr. Chair, can I ask the motioner?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
On your motion, should you include a letter, you're talking about a letter to Congressman Buchanan, that we supported and look forward, something about the plan?
Yeah, the plan and feasibility.
Yeah, plan and
Yeah,
feasibility, okay.
Sure. We have that.
Thank you.
So we do have a motion on the board, but before we go to the motion, I want to make sure we have the comments from the commissioners. Commissioner Cruz, sir, you're next.
Yeah, everyone's kind of saying the same thing, so just for the sake of discussion, I'm going to kind of say the opposite. We're talking about a letter of support, but we don't have any information to support anything. I'm okay with a letter saying, hey, it doesn't hurt to put together an Excel spreadsheet and have discussions, and then have a discussion about whether or not support, but to blindly just say we flat out support building a cruise terminal without any information whatsoever, to me, I don't support anything until I have a better handle on it. And here's my only concern, and again, I'm just speaking to the other side because it seems like everyone's just jumping on it, so I want to have a real discussion. This economy, all we keep talking about is how Manatee County's hyper cyclical in terms of our employment base. The least cyclical part of our economy right now is this port. Everything else is tourism and services. And when you build a port terminal, if you do it correctly to get bed count and people in here and people want to come here, it's not just the space necessary for the terminal, it's the ancillary services. No one gets off a boat and just looks around in barren fields and industrial parks. You're going to end up with retail and hotels and restaurants. Otherwise, you don't have a successful port in the first place, because otherwise we're putting people on buses and shipping them all the way down to Moat Marine at UTC as one of our few tourism places you're going to take them, because God knows the islands aren't going to be jumping up and down about massive charter buses pulling in there and everyone piling out onto Holmes Beach. But,
Parking could be an issue.
I'm just saying, so you're going to have additional services here. We only have so much space around this port. This port is already capped in terms of maximum size, and when you build a terminal, those services go closer to the terminal, which further compresses what's not only a successful, but a massively successful and massively growing potential for non-cyclical services in Manatee County. We have air products. We should be focusing our attention on getting more air products type people out here with higher wages in non-cyclical employment and growing this port first and foremost, because we just saw that. Look at what we saw. 0 passengers, $0 during COVID. Well, that's what happened with our hotels and our restaurants previously. We're going to go long on an industry that proves that it's cyclical. What happens next time real estate market collapses? Not only does our our home builders get hurt, but when people lose value in their homes, they stop going on cruises and doing additional vacations. I just personally think we're going long in the one part of Manatee County that we should be focusing our attention on what could be a thriving, growing, industry, driver up here in the port. So that's just my opinion. I'm not adverse to having the discussion and looking at the numbers, but to flat out say I support a more cyclical thing in place of potential growth of the port, I don't flat out blindly support it.
Commissioner Ball.
I wish I could look back over the years and see how many conversations the Port Authority has had about a cruise line coming to this port. The one thing that stood out for me is, I do understand where Commissioner Cruz is coming from. In some ways, I do agree with him. You know, we've got to make sure that we do the growth that will give us the most return. And I think we all know, and we've all talked about leadership at this port. I know when I was chair for 3 years, we talked about the cruise lines and how it could be beneficial, but it wasn't top priority, you know, because we knew that it was an industry that could suffer, and if it suffers, then it would make the port suffer, as we've seen other ports do. But the one thing I've not heard, and I'm real surprised that I haven't heard anybody on this board, well, the new gentleman wouldn't know this, I don't think, but a few years back, we had some great conversation, I thought, with DOT about the possibility of looking for another location for our port for cruise lines that would not be affected by the Skyway Bridge. Trust me, we did. I mean, I remember it. Carlos, I'm assuming you would, and Dave. No, it didn't. And it wasn't us. It was other ports that weren't real keen on it because they knew we had them nailed on it with our location, as I recall. Oh, I bet it was. It wasn't one of ours. You're right, Mike. I recall that. But the thing of it is that, you know, that is something that in this discussion and looking at this, I mean, I think that's something, if you're going to really look at this seriously, I would love to have cruise lines here, as long as we do it in a good way. But I think we need to take into consideration, again, Mike, I'm sorry, but I think, you know, the Skyway is an issue. It's billions upon billions of dollars to either put it as a tunnel or go higher. I mean, it's astronomical. There's no way that's going to happen. So we know that. We've heard that before. Jennifer, I think you were there. So we know that's not a possibility. So the other possibility would be what we talked about doing before. I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know. I mean, leadership changes. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, but that being said, you know, I don't have a problem with us looking at it, but I'm not going to commit myself to agreeing that it's something we need to do, because in that regard, I do agree with Commissioner Cruz. We don't know. You know, we looked at it. We've looked at it several times, Dave, since you and I've been here, and it's not panned out. Now this time it might. The economy's different right now. You know, what it's going to do in the future, I don't know. But, you know, we do have a master plan that we're following, and we need to continue on that master plan because that's revenue that we know is for sure. So I think it's a great idea for our port. I don't mind signing a letter that states that, you know, we're looking into this and would be excited and hope that it works out, or however, Mr. Chair, you'd like to word it, you and Mr. Begaris. But to say definitely that we support it, I don't think we do have enough information to say we support it. But I think we need to look at that land that I think is still there. Sorry, Mike. Which would make a great cruise terminal area, just saying. So thank you. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Commissioner Satcher.
So just to speak to a couple of the concerns, and then I'll make an adjustment. You know, I was taught that everything rises and falls on leadership. So if you trust, you know, the person leading and they understand, you know, where you're going, then you give them the ball and let them run with it. But I do understand this is, you know, there's a lot of moving parts, and there is risk involved. This is a great asset that we have, and that is why the first question I ask is, does it jeopardize what we already have? But given that, I think that first of all, this board has been more decisive. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way. This board has been very decisive and accomplished a lot in a short amount of time. And I like that, and I would like to continue that way of doing business. However, I think that we'd be much more powerful and accomplish more in the long run if we are able to go forward united or very close to united. And with that, I'll amend my motion to have, rather than send the letter, to have you answer some of the questions that some of the board members have, and even the ones that I had written down that I kind of hurried through. And so present the plan, and then it seems like with Commissioner Baugh, also, I didn't know that there was another spot that we could put another port.
It
The only
didn't
thing
get
better
too
than
far.
one's two, if you ask me. But I don't know. The residents, I don't know where you're talking about the location. So it might be some pushback on that, but I'm at least interested in hearing it. But I don't want too much time to pass, and I don't want to get so far in the weeds, so detailed that we end up doing nothing and wasting, months and years and things moving on past while we're at a spot where this seems like an opportunity. And then one of the things I think that from the presentation and from what I've heard, I think a little bit of balance is when we talk about the cruise, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe in the presentation that comes back to us, address this. It seems like even though it may be more cyclical, it also seems like it's more of a bonanza. It seems like it's more of a large amount of impact on the community. Could be wrong on that. So just, keep us posted on that. And then once again, to me, if it doesn't jeopardize what we already have, we're just adding, then it sounds good to me. But so I will amend my motion to have, rather than send the letter, to have you bring us back a little bit more detail on the plan to see if we can get hopefully 7, and if not 7, very close to sign on to the plan, so we're not sending a half-baked idea that people don't have the confidence we'll carry through on.
Okay, Commissioner Barr, and then we'll go.
Well,
Survey.
I'm not going to
Well-
second his amendment.
You are going to?
I'm not going to because, and the reason why is we are very competitive here. If we ask to have them to bring a plan before us, we have a port north of us that people will, it's all public. That kind of stuff could be talked individually. I mean, all this is to let Congressman Buchanan know that we support him coming down here, talking to Carnival, and we support the concept. That's all that was. Yeah, so I'm not going to support the second because I don't want, in all due respect to Port of Tampa, to know what our plan is.
They already do.
Because have you ever met their director, Mr. Anderson? No, I don't want.
They already know.
Right there.
Yeah, they're watching now. So yeah, really, this is different than
They
the
already
government.
know.
This is their a business. So.
Well, okay. Commissioner Barr?
Well, I will second his motion if that's helpful, if Commissioner, but I do understand Commissioner Whitmore's point.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to add that the only reason I said what I did is because DOT, as I recall, it was DOT, I think, that brought it to us initially. The concern was the Skyway Bridge. The cruise ships that are being built today are not going to be able to get under the Skyway. It's just not going to happen. And so from that standpoint, if we are, and that's why I bring it up, if we are really serious about looking at the cruise industry, then we need to really be thorough in looking at it and see what we might be able to do or couldn't do or whatever the case may be. Commissioner Whitmore is correct about Port of Tampa Bay or Tampa, whatever they call it. I will tell you, I was at that meeting, and so was Commissioner Whitmore, where we were called by the Secretary of DOT. I don't think the rest of you were on the board at the time.
Yeah.
And we were called to a meeting up in, I think it was St. Pete.
Yes.
And it was not a fun meeting. It wasn't bad for Port Manatee, but it was real bad for Paul.
Anderson.
Yes.
And he's still the port director.
Yes, he is. And it's because Commissioner Whitmore was correct. It is a very competitive business, and there had been some shenanigans with Port Manatee, as I recall, that they were trying to do. But that being said, they already know they're in the same predicament we are when it comes to cruise ships. It's no different. The good news for Manatee is that we did have some property that was on the water on the other side of the Skyway that was possible. It could have been used for a cruise ship or two. So I don't know if that's even still a possibility. I don't know. I hadn't thought any more about it. I'm just saying that I do agree we need to really be thorough in looking at this, because I know with conversations that I've had over the past years, it's not a cheap endeavor. It's just not. But the return can be great, but we need to make sure that we do all of the investigating and due diligence. So I will second Commissioner Satcher's
Okay, we still have the
Motion.
and now we have a second. Commissioner Servia.
Yes, good discussion. I will say that where I am is that expressing a desire to move forward with a feasibility study is an appropriate first step. I'd like to support our U.S. Congressman in doing that. There are no commitments being made, but it is a very fast-paced, fast-moving, competitive place that we're talking about. So I don't see any commitment being made by doing that, but we can have questions answered at the same time that we have Congressman Buchanan doing his work in D.C., and I would suggest that we do that. So I liked Commissioner Satcher's original motion. I wish he would go back to it. In business, if you move too slowly, sometimes the world passes you by. So the more information that we can gather now, the better it will be for Port Manatee. Thank you. Oh, regarding the Skyway, I do have one more comment regarding the Skyway. Yes, of course, the Skyway is too low to get the major big ships under it, but there's a different market for cruise ships. I don't know if they call them river boats or what they call them, but they're also equally as desirable, just not the huge, giant, tall cruise ships. And I think that's probably something that we would target, something that could fit under the Skyway. So thank you.
Right. So I wanted to get everybody out before I give a little bit more. The conversation with the congressman, there was a lot of information that was out there, and when we spoke about the Skyway Bridge concern, the congressman actually identified numbers and as far as how much money it would take to address the Skyway Bridge concern and the time link. So obviously there's been some communication and some study, but I think where we are with what we're talking about, a multi-use terminal that will be able to impact cruise. As far as the second interview, I think more important, we'll still be able to do storage, impact our cargo. I think we're putting the cart before the horse when we think cruise. We're thinking, all right, we're gonna get the biggest cruise carnival ship that we can possibly get to get in here, and that's not necessarily where we are, that's where we wanna be. I think the start will be with ferry, and we kind of talked about that going into Caribbean, and then there's the anticipation of growth. It's not like we will, once we move on this, the intent, and when I was blown out of my seat when I heard the Carnival cruise ship couldn't get up under the Skyway. So crazy me going across the Skyway, I see a Del Monte ship going across, I was like, wow, I got a different perspective of it because I've never been on that big cruise just yet in my life. That's on my bucket list, and God has some other things for me. But anyway, so my thought is I don't want us to go too far as thinking that when we're coming out and we're looking at the cruise terminal, the initial approach was to be, we're going to have the biggest cruise ship that's out there. Just listening and reflecting from the VP from the cruise, from Carnival Cruise, he expressed to us, there's a lot of diversity when you start talking about cruise options. And I think when we spoke of what we listened to it, the recommendation to start was from the ferry and then grow. But then when we discussed a multi-use, when we discussed the multi-use, it also gave us some understanding there was some other revenue that's going to be coming in with this multi-use terminal besides just us leaning on cruise. So I wanted to make sure that that information was out there. And now I will go to Commissioner Cruz.
Yeah, honestly, you can go back to your original motion. I don't care. First off, I prefaced the entire thing by saying everyone's saying the same thing, like this is some big, I just wanted to let people know there is another side to this. Everyone acted like we're going to get a cruise ship and all of a sudden we're going to become Miami and we're like, this is the greatest thing ever. I wanted to show there is another side to it. I think we're all saying the same thing. I just don't know if the nature of the letter seemed to imply to me. We support building a cruise terminal here. But what Commissioner Servia just said is exactly what I said. I support doing a feasibility study and discussing it. I'm not blindly supporting anything, because I don't want down the road someone to say, you supported that cruise terminal, because once the information comes in, if it doesn't look good, I'm going to not support it. And I don't want someone to say, you agreed. No, but I honestly also don't think Representative Buchanan is stressing over whether or not this board approves him moving forward with anything.
do it anyway.
You know, this is it's a
He's
fake
doing it
fake
anyway.
letter. It's true. I mean, if this is 5-2 or 6-1 or 7-0, it's the letter still going to say the Port Authority supports
And the chair.
your move forward with this. And if him or most likely his staff watch this video, I got my points out. So go back to the original motion. I'll even vote for it if it makes everyone feel better. But I'm not committing to agreeing to what the outcome is.
It's Commissioner Whitmore, then Commissioner Ball.
And I went on a cruise here with a bunch of girls from Manatee Hospital years ago, and it's called Vera Cruise Went to Mexico. And and that terminal where Carlos's office is the cruise terminal. But and George is absolutely right. We are not taking away from what we're doing. Our business model is what we're doing now. That's an ancillary thing. I 100% agree kind of what he said. We're not going to focus and change this into a cruise terminal. So if you're watching Tampa, you know, we're not doing that, and you aren't either. So, but it's, and Congressman Buchanan, the reason why this was timely is because he's going to be the chair of the Ways and Means, right? Appropriations this next year. That's what it's looking like. So that's probably why Carnival wanted to meet with them. And the master plan does show something north of here too. And so we did have long range plans, whether it was going to be whatever. I mean, in years past, it's actually going to be eminent domain on some things. That's how far out we had planned, but that's many years away. But I know Carlos is just dying, because he ran Port Everglades for 20 years, and it was the cruise business that you brought up, and that you were in charge of that. You were marketing that. So I know you're dying to say something. I want you to alleviate that. We're not losing our business model of Port Manatee. We're using your expertise and Vern Buchanan's money to get this.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Please.
could I? Okay,
We
so
do have some
I
other
wanted
commissioners
to
on
add,
the
in particular in regard to Commissioner Cruz's comments, I don't like to put all my eggs in any basket. Absolutely not. Not just a cruise terminal. It's going to be a cruise, ferry, day cruise, gambling cruise terminal. So the terminal, the concept, again, based upon your, you considering this further, would be a multi-purpose terminal. Multi-purpose. Carnival said the C word, and it wasn't for Carnival, it was the other island down the stream there. And the concept there was that we will have at some point a potential under a resumption of trade with a C word down there, that where Port Manatee should be positioned to essentially benefit from that event. We need a ferry terminal for that, a European-style ferry terminal. And in fact, Jura Israel, the vice president of Carnival Cruise, brought that up. Ferry, day cruise. So that terminal we use several times a day or several times a week. I wouldn't put all my eggs on just a cruise basket. It does. But if we can multi-use a terminal, it's a great benefit. In fact, some ports use the terminal for supplemental convention and visitors bureau space in terms of, of events, because they're large and they're prettier than the convention center until, of course, they expand theirs and might not even need this. But multi-purpose, we'll bring back a 5,000-foot view. We'll do it internally, review for concept. And we're also moving forward with an update of our master plan, which incorporates a cruise consultant in that to look at this further. In the meantime, though, we are essentially identifying potential users, letting them know that, because this is a long-term thing, letting them know that, in 2 or 3 years, if we have a facility, would they be able to, to come in and use it? So essentially, very baby steps. The funding would be, very reasonable. And as the Carnival Senior VP said, build me something that's functional, and can handle cruise, ferry, and even a day cruise. or a cruise to Mexico, all of which fit under the bridge. If the bridge at some point gets built or expanded, or there's a terminal outside of the bridge, as Commissioner Baugh mentioned, there is some land there, okay? And when you consider a cruise ship is $1 billion, it doesn't take, that much to build a terminal outside the bridge. It won't take $1 billion.
Commissioner,
So those are my,
Commissioner Ball?
Yeah, I'm going to remove my second on Commissioner Thatcher's motion, and I want to explain why. First of all, I guess maybe some of us were not briefed as thoroughly. All of a sudden, I'm hearing about ferries and day trips, and I hadn't heard any of that before. No. So, just that makes a difference. I hadn't heard that.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I thought
That's
we-
okay. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But I do want to correct one thing. We always support our congressman, and always have. So, we need to make sure that, yes, he does know that, because we always have supported him. I hope he is chairman of Ways and Means. I mean, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. But at the same time, I guess some of us just don't move as quickly. We're a little bit slower in making decisions, and we require a little bit more information. I don't mind it being looked at. Needs to be looked at. I didn't know about the ferries and the day cruises and going to Mexico and all that. I hadn't heard any of that. So I think it's, an okay thing, as long as we don't let the rest of the issues at the port, that we're working on go. So, and I think Commissioner Cruz would also agree with that. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Servia?
Yeah, we're getting to a great place. It was good discussion, and I guess it's my years in the land development field that I've always learned that when you have an idea, the faster you move on due diligence and collecting facts, the more important. You want to get as much information as quickly as you can to either support or shelve that idea, and then you take a step back before you make a commitment. So I'm all about getting data and getting the research done as quickly as possible and supporting our U.S. congressmen to do that in D.C. And one thing we haven't talked about that I remember talking to Carlos about when I was first elected is a possible ferry to Cuba. We're all waiting for Cuba to open up so that we could do that. There's talks at the Convention and Visitors Bureau about a water taxi between downtown Bradenton and the islands. There's another opportunity perhaps as North County develops. So I think that it's very worthy of investigation, and I'm really excited about that. Thank you.
Commissioner Thatcher?
So with that, seems that we have come full circle. The amendment dies, and so we'll stick with my original motion, which is to draft the letter and move forward with obvious, some concerns that have been stated as far as wanting more information. But a lot of that information has already come out through this discussion. Thank you.
So do we have a motion or not? I think it's clear.
That's the motion.
Yeah, that's, so we have a motion on the board.
Second.
And we have a second, and we've had discussion, so
Can you
we're.
repeat the motion?
No.
It was too confusing.
We
I
passed
need
that
to know what
to
I'm
me.
voting on, and I'm not
Second
sure.
retraction ended, and the third motion.
But can I ask
know.
Commissioner Thatcher to kind of, bring his motion
Q will
together?
do it.
Q will do it.
Mr. Chairman, originally the motion was a letter of support, draft a letter of support between the chairman and Mr. Bucharest, and it would include a feasibility study and plan, but then Member Thatcher changed it to just draft a letter including information as mentioned during y'all's discussion.
I like the first one.
I thought the whole thing was we didn't want to do a full feasibility because we won't Tampa to see it.
They see everything at this point.
Well, I'm
There's
sorry.
no way in the
I
world
mean,
that
I'm
works.
That's this concern
misunderstanding.
y'all brought up.
But
Yeah.
Carlos, what would be best politically with our competition?
Well, hold on.
Well-
Before
Oh, Lord,
that,
have
with
mercy.
with all due
Do our
respect.
best for Manatee.
Right, and this is the competitive part of me,
Right.
right? If we're gonna do something, regardless of what the competitors get ready to do, we put, and we prepare to make sure we do what we need to do to be successful.
Okay, Coach
And whether
Bellamy.
I'm just being honest
Oh,
with you.
no, you're coach.
I'm just
Good.
being honest with you, and whether they're watching or not,
Yeah.
we're gonna trust our leadership to put a plan together so we can be successful. That's any game plan.
That's right.
That's it. That's any game plan. So whether they're watching or not, if you all are, I wish you all the best of luck. Please protect yourself. But we're still going to move forward. We're still going to move forward and put the Port Authority in the best situation as possible. So do we have the information on how you want your language stated, sir? Respectfully.
I'm not saying a word.
No, I'm just.
I think we're going to move a lot faster without a.
Okay.
I
Well,
would-
hold on. Can I throw something out here, Commissioner Satch?
Yes.
No, just I'd make a motion that the chairman of the Port Authority and the executive director of the port write a letter to Representative Buchanan with this authority's support of his efforts to move forward with his determination of the feasibility of a cruise terminal at Port Manatee.
Perfect, perfect.
Use his motion. Yeah. Is that okay, Commissioner Satcher?
Do you like
Is that
that?
your motion?
It seems real similar to exactly what we said. Yes, but, you know.
Okay.
Legally, are we
I like
okay
it.
with that? Where's our attorney? Legally,
So I
are
will
we-
amend to that language.
Yes.
Whatever.
A seconder will too.
Okay, in the second half, so now we have, she's giving us a thumbs up, sir. She's giving us a thumbs
No,
up.
she's giving us like, get out of here.
No, I'm saying the lawyer. So we have a motion.
flavor. It
was a
and
different
we-
finger.
I'm getting ready to close this out quick. We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are no nays, so the motion passes 6-0. And now we are going to the next thing. Wait, hold on.
Mr. Chair?
Please,
I
please,
just, no,
Commissioner Barr,
I think
please
it's.
speak now.
It's good that we're doing this, and I just want to say that over the years, there's been many ideas that have come up for Port Manatee, just like this. And it's one of those things where you have to look into it when it comes up, and one of these days, we're bound to hit gold. And I guess that's what I think we're all thinking right now, so.
If I may, yeah, you're right, Commissioner Ball. You know, the concept of cruise and ferry with the proximity to Cuba and other Caribbean islands in a modest way with a small, you know, relatively small terminal that fits the concept is just a common sense that, you know, for the board, I think, in terms of a feasibility study to consider. It's really, you know, to us, you know, just an opportunity that we need to look at for you, so you don't come back and say, you know, why did you never think of doing a cruise, you know, ferry study? And then we'll come up, we'll see what the results are. I think, given my experience in the business, in cruise and ferries, it's almost, you know, I think a great opportunity that we would miss because of our proximity to others. And there'll be plenty of business for the Port of Tampa, plenty of business for the Port of Manatee, plenty of business for the Port of Fort Lauderdale and Miami, because the market south of us, particularly, in fact, you know, the Cuban market is over, you know, 12 million people there, and if and when it opens, you know, it's going to be a rush, and I don't want Alabama to get there first and Georgia to get there first and Mississippi to get there first, because even in the case of Alabama, their governor was there, you know, a few years ago when it was, you know, when it was kind of opening a little bit. It's closed now. We want to be ready in terms of at least the ferry part, to move cargo and passengers in a terminal that is multi-purpose.
Thank you.
And that really depends on leadership in DC.
Yes.
Okay, that discussion is
Done.
paused, it's not done, it's paused. I'm sure there's more discussion to come. We'll go to public comment now, if we have any.
Okay,
public
well,
comment.
anybody?
Nobody wants to-
Nobody on the phone, so
Nobody's on the phone.
we move.
F. Comments?
Yes, FDOT, in fact, there are two representatives today from FDOT. I don't know if Mr. Fitzpatrick wants to come up also, you know, and say a few words. You're going to let, Keith, it's all yours.
Good morning. I'll go first. Just to give you a couple of updates. The grant agreement for the American Rescue Plan Act recovery funds that Port Manatee is getting was executed yesterday. So the port has that in hand now. And the 3 public transportation grant agreements that were approved by this board last month have all 3 been executed as well. And that's a total of about just under $5 million for those 3 and almost $5 million for the ARPA grant agreement. We are moving forward with our planning and coordination to install a signal at the south side of I-275 on US 41. Latest I have is that they are working hard to try and get that put in the current year. So hopefully that'll go in the next 12 months or so. In last month's District 1 Town Hall meeting, we have taken on a practice of updating certain projects for all of our district staff across the 12 county region that we cover. And Port Manatee was the one that we highlighted last month. So I got to talk about some of the projects that are going on here. Had some pretty cool photos that Virginia and Denise provided me a lot of good details and statistics on that. So I thank you for that. And in going on with that, last month on the 2nd of September, or 2 weeks ago, actually on the 2nd of September, we had the Manatee operations maintenance team came out here and made a visit to the port so they could see what all was going on, and they were quite impressed. And these are folks who have been Manatee residents for years and never realized just what all was going on out here. So they were very impressed, and Dave and Mo were our tour guides around the port that day. And there may be other visitors from the district coming in the coming months. So word is getting out, and people want to come see what's happening. And with that, I'll take any of your questions, or I'll hand it over to Dan. Keith Robbins, the District 1 Freight and Seaport Coordinator.
Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Dan Fitzpatrick, and I'm the State Seaport Manager for the Florida Department of Transportation. And I've been with the department for a little bit over 7 years now, and I've been coming to Port Manatee for 7 years now. And last time I was here in April, never seen anything like it, and I'm gonna get the opportunity to see the port again today with my colleagues from Tallahassee, and really excited to see the boxes moving at Port Manatee. So, you know, a little bit about why the Department of Transportation participates in seaport projects, just to get us started, is Florida has 14 active seaports around the state, and there's a 7-to-1 return on investment for seaport projects. So for every $7 the state invests in seaport projects, that's
It's the other way around.
Thank you. For every $1 the state invests in seaport projects around the state, that's a $7 return to the state's economy. Thank you. And so what does that actually mean is seaports create primary, secondary, and tertiary economic impacts, positive economic impacts. Those are jobs for families, United States businesses, and these, as we all know in this room, is seaport infrastructure lasts for 30 or more years. Port Manatee's berths are now approaching 50 years. Yeah. And so that investment 50 years ago is still paying off today. And so that's why it's so important. And so we're talking about multi-generational economic impacts for Florida. So want to thank Keith for his advocacy. You know Keith Robbins, our Southwest Florida freight and seaport expert, and you'll know Keith for his work in doing strategic planning, near-term planning that you get to see every single day. New roads, new cargo yards, new berths. And so what I do up in Tallahassee is I manage our state's $95 million annual economic grant program for the state. It's $95 million as a minimum. Some years it's more. This year is a lot more, with $250 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds. And so 5 years ago, you know, how do we do this every year? How do we decide where that $95 million goes. And so 5 years ago, we put together our statewide seaport plan update, and we identified our top priorities, and those are berths, near berth cargo yards, and cargo handling equipment. And we can see that 5 years later. We put that plan together in 2016, and we can see it paying off now. So want to thank, again, the opportunity to visit, to see the great work that Port Manatee's doing, and to thank my colleague, Keith Robbins, for all of his hard work and strategic planning in Southwest Florida. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments?
Well, I got one.
Go ahead,
I'll
ma'am.
go ahead. It didn't look, okay. The Port Authority members here, we can't thank FDOT enough for the partnership that you've given us over the years. Our port, we couldn't be where we are today, no doubt, without DOT. I mean, there has been such a close relationship, and I can remember a few years ago, wasn't that many, when we actually sit down and talked about different ways to maybe bond and do things, and what we realized is that we didn't need to really change what we were doing because of the relationship with DOT. So you guys have just really been wonderful. And Keith, it's always a pleasure to see you. I know we've all worked with you over the years very closely, and it's really, we can't thank you enough for that partnership. So, thank you.
Any more comments? And again, same thing. Thank you here. Any more comments? No. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I like the return, too.
Yeah.
Executive Director comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few, and I'll move quickly. We go. So you already heard about this, so now Port Manatee is taking on a more higher role in the Florida Seaport Council. The chamber meeting, I guess we used to have the airport and the seaport, I guess, together doing the state of the ports, but I think the chamber realized if they split us up, they could make double the money. So now it's the airport with Rick Piccolo and the seaport with Carlos. They double their money, that's fine with us. Of course, I got the big room, Rick got the small room. Yeah. That's okay.
What's the way it should be.
I play the big room.
Yeah.
So that was, and thank you all, the commissioners there, for joining us. It's important, I think, that I know you're very busy with your day job, but that you came out, and we're seeing there in supporting the port. We just don't do business. We also do some good work in terms of supporting the local community, and the Propeller Club, and the vice, Matty Apici, who just, of course, retired, is the president, but the vice president is Virginia Zimmerman, of the Propeller Club, which is, again, a international organization that, again, like Kiwanis or other service groups, supports the local community. Again, we are again growing the port. This is essentially a piece of equipment to vacuum ashore, to almost like a real vacuum, cement from a ship into the silos. The company there has made a multi-million-dollar investment, Ash Grove Cement, to grow that facility. Huge amount of money. Because why? The houses we're building and all those additional, new revenue streams and ad valorem and so on, they're going to need more cement. So that's another proof that they're making this investment in a fixed asset at a specific location because the communities that are growing are directly in and around the port. Of course, as you know, today you can't find truckers anywhere. So we try to make truckers our friends before it was fashionable. The 6th annual, trucker appreciation. Yeah. And truckers are in high demand now, hard to get, and so we want to show again, our appreciation of their work. And that's it for my remarks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
It's a great picture.
Yeah, this one's it.
Isn't that nice?
Any comments?
Yeah, I did. I don't think he's here. We're giving vaccines, or somebody is, somebody on the port.
Correct.
But these are people from all over the world, and most places in the world you can't get the vaccine, so it's good. But are we giving J&J the one-timer? Because then they'd have to come back for their second. Maybe
Well,
that's a dumb
well,
question. but-
many of the ships come back every month.
Okay.
Or every week, in fact, some of them. So, depending on the crew, but obviously Anchor House,
They're doing
along
it?
with the Manatee Health Department, are
Okay.
doing that. And of course, they got a plan for that eventuality. If it's 2 doses, if they're not going to be back, they might be giving them 1 dose.
Yeah.
But certainly, I think seafarers, which travel over the world, can be transmitting COVID just because of the nature of their job. So getting them vaccinated is a great opportunity.
If the health department's involved, I'm sure they're probably just doing the one time, hopefully, because, or a commitment that they're coming back because one doesn't work. You need the 2. So the J&J is the one that does
The one,
work.
right, the one.
60%. Yeah, okay.
Great. Okay, we're going to Commissioner comments. Commissioner Cruz?
I'm good.
Commissioner Ball?
No, sir.
And no one else have any commission comments? I think today, we had a great day as far as discussion and as far as seeing where we can go. And again, Carlos, that's your leadership. Thank you to FDOT. Thank you to FDOT, the CEO, the council, the Port Council. Thank you for your information and everything like that. And this meeting is officially adjourned.